Hey, Daryl here. This is my daily devotional. Romans 13:1 tells us this truth. God establishes the governing authorities. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. I know that some authorities are wicked. Some governing authorities are wonderful. I am convinced that God gives a people the governing authority they deserve. A good God-fearing people may receive a good God-fearing governing authority. But for those people who are wicked in their ways, I sense God giving the same type of authority to govern them. Saul, king of Israel, ate up with jealousy for David, seeking to kill him. Yet David recognized that he was the governing authority that was established by God. And so David even bowed prostrate before Saul. Listen as I read. This is kind of funny. You see, King Saul just happened to go into a cave to relieve himself. And it just happened to be the same cave where David and some of his men were hiding deeper in the cave. And while King Saul went in there to relieve himself, David had every opportunity to, but he chose not to. Listen as I read in 1 Samuel chapter 24, beginning at verse 1. Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines. He came to a sheep pen. There was a cave. Saul went in to relieve himself. David and his men were far back in that cave. The men said, "This is the day this Lord spoke of. He's given him into our hands." Then David crept up unnoticed and cut off a corner of Saul's robe. There he is, relieving himself, unaware that David has crept up in that dark cave right there next to him and cut off part of his robe. Afterward, David's conscience-stricken for having cut off a corner of his robe, said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or lift my hand against him, for he is the anointed of the Lord." With these words, David rebuked his men and did not allow them to attack Saul while he was relieving himself. And Saul left the cave and went his way. Then David went out of the cave, called out to Saul, "My lord, the king." When Saul looked behind him, David bowed down and prostrated himself, his face to the ground. Now this is the one who's trying to kill him. And yet he recognizes that he is God's given authority over Israel, established by God. He said to Saul, "Why do you listen when men say David is bent on harming you? This day you have seen with your own eyes how the Lord delivered you into my hands in the cave. Some urged me to kill you, but I spared you. I will not lift my hand against my master, because he is the Lord's anointed. See, my father, look, this piece of your robe in my hand I cut off, the corner of your robe, but did not kill you." And at this point, Saul could have been trembling in fear as David stood there with the corner of his robe. But David, though he had the chance to kill Saul, who had become evil towards David, David exercised respect to the one that God had established to govern over him. Man, we need to learn this lesson in our nation today. God establishes the governing authorities. I am convinced the scripture is true. And for those who try to harm the governing authorities, in any way are working against God. God bless you. Good day.